All right, so we're going to show you how to go ahead and measure for one of our single hinged doors. You'll have your handle sample like such. You'll want to find your mounting plane of the door. A typical general rule of thumb, you want to have your subframe sit anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch on top of your mounting surface. So in this instance, onto the stucco mold to the edge where it meets the stucco. Looks like it would be a nice fit. So in this instance, we would measure from side to side, and that would be our net width. On the height, you want to measure typically whatever point you measure to on the side, just for the purpose of symmetry. You'd want to measure to the same on the top, and the bottom will dictate, the bottom sill and or threshold setup will dictate how the bottom works out. So side to side here on our width, we're going to start at that same point on our top and measure down for our height. Now on the height, at the bottom here, we have two options. We can put a four-sided door, which means the subframe would have a fourth side on the bottom here, and the door closes and seals up on itself. Or there's an option to have no bottom frame here. We call this a three-sided door, and the door sash itself would have a brush sweep across the bottom that would touch and sit on the sill and create your bug seal. So let's take a look at what we have here. If this is our mounting plane, our door is going to come down. We have a gap between our subframe and our sill. So in one sense, this is good. What this allows us to do for this door is drop our door down below the finished sill height, and we can put our door at the same height here. Our subframe is the same height as the sill. Now with this gap, all we'll do, we can use the same color sill that you can pick up at typically at any construction store. We will then bridge the gap between our subframe and their sill. We would use silver. It would go all the way across, and that would give you a nice custom clean finished look. So if you are dropping a fourth side frame down below the opening, you would obviously measure up here from the top. We would measure our tape down to the finished sill height or sill elevation. You would then want to add the measurement of our subframe, which is basically, for simplicity's sake, 1 3/4 inches. So we would measure from top to bottom and add that 1 3/4 inches to get our subframe down below. If you had a sill that extended and our door was going to be installed onto or over that sill, we would then omit the fourth-sided frame, and the brush sweep would close on the bottom of the door sash, would close and sit up on top of the sill. So that's the width, the height, and also if we want to use a 3 or 4-sided frame. Now for the handle, we mentioned 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch as a good rule of thumb for overlap for our frame to sit on top of, and we'll show you from the back side right here why we don't want to go typically any more than about 1 inch. If we come over and make our door too wide, that's going to bury the lock cylinder and the handle up against the jamb. It's not going to be practical, or maybe in some instances even possible to use. So you want to have it out far enough so it's comfortable to use. If we make our door too narrow and now our subframe is not sitting on enough surface, it's going to want to teeter-totter here on the edge. So you got to find the happy medium. You want to give it enough backing to sit against, but not so much that the lock cylinder is buried up against the handle. Also, as far as handle height, The handle sample works perfectly. This is a left-handed sample. In this instance, we'll just turn it over. You can see that we have enough clearance for the handle. This is very typical, a 6-inch spread between the handle and the deadbolt. Most times, putting our handle at the deadbolt height makes sure that the hardware doesn't conflict, and it's also a nice aesthetic look for a handle height. So if we were to put our handle at the deadbolt height, we can see there we have plenty of clearance. Now, if we flip this over, you can also see that the thumb cylinder, which would be on the inside, would also clear the door handle. And you've got plenty of room to operate the handle up and down. So that's pretty much it for the purpose of measuring our single hinge door. We've got our width, we've got our height. Figure out whether it needs to be a 3 or 4-sided frame. And if it's a 4-sided frame that you're going to drop, you want to add that 1 3/4 to that opening height. And then just make sure you have your handle marked on the correct side, left or right, and that your handle is going to clear all of their hardware. And that's pretty much it for our single hinge door.